Hi, I'm Dr. Amin Korchi. I'm a medical doctor and a practicing radiologist. I'm also an investor and an advisor to healthcare AI companies. Today, I want to discuss a recent acquisition that, in my opinion, teaches us one of the most important lessons about building AI companies in healthcare: the acquisition of Contextflow by the Australian company 4D Medical. This story demonstrates something that every entrepreneur, every investor, and every healthcare professional interested in AI should understand. Doing almost everything right is sometimes still not enough. For those unfamiliar with the company, here's a quick overview. Contextflow is an Austrian radiology AI company founded in 2016 and focused on chest CT. Their core product helps radiologists detect, quantify, and characterize lung diseases such as lung cancer, COPD, and interstitial lung disease by providing AI-generated insights with integration in the reporting workflow. But it also built a broad lung application ecosystem by integrating and distributing two complementary AI solutions from two other companies. The first from Reveal DX, which is an American startup, and their product estimates the probability that a lung nodule on a CT scan is a cancer. And the second one is from a French-American company, Avicenna AI, and their product automatically detects incidental pulmonary embolism on every enhanced CT scan. So by the time of this acquisition, Contextflow had evolved well beyond a single AI algorithm. They had become a true chest radiology platform. The buyer, 4D Medical, is an Australian publicly listed medical imaging company specialized in functional lung imaging. And what they're doing is fascinating. Traditionally, when physicians want to assess how well the lungs actually function, for example, how air is distributed throughout the lungs, what we call ventilation, or how blood flows through them, what we call perfusion, they rely on dedicated nuclear medicine tests, the ventilation perfusion scans, where patients inhale or are injected with radioactive tracers. So it's not as simple or straightforward as performing a routine chest CT in a radiology institute. And 4D Medical took a completely different approach to detect and quantify these biomarkers. They used advanced image analysis and extracted functional information from a pair of two non-contrast chest CT of the same patient acquired at the same time. One acquired during full inspiration and the other during expiration. This allows them to measure how different regions of the lungs ventilate and are perfused by blood. And basically, they transformed what has traditionally been a pure anatomical examination, the chest CT, into one that also provides valuable physiological information without the need of injecting or inhaling any substance by patients. Traditionally, these ventilation perfusion scans has been performed in nuclear medicine and most commonly to diagnose pulmonary embolism when CT angiography cannot be performed, and also to evaluate other pulmonary diseases such as COPD, and also to assess lung function before surgery. So overall, I think what 4D Medical did is very impressive. It's revolutionary actually, but the current real clinical use is very specialized and limited compared to many of the AI applications we see in mainstream medical imaging. So it's a kind of niche use case. With the acquisition of Contextflow, 4D Medical significantly broadens its portfolio beyond functional lung imaging, which is kind of a niche use case, into mainstream AI applications for chest CT, including particularly lung nodule detection, which is one of the most mature and well-validated application of AI in radiology, and it has a particularly promising future as CT lung cancer screening continues to be adopted worldwide. And more importantly, beyond the technology and the product, this acquisition gives 4D Medical an immediate access to top-notch medical imaging talent pool an experienced European team with regulatory and reimbursement expertise, and a commercial infrastructure in Europe. And these are assets that would likely take years and substantial investment for an Australian company to build from scratch in Europe. Now, here's what I find interesting. By almost every operational metric, Contextflow was successful. They built excellent technology, they generated clinical evidence, they obtained regulatory approval, they even achieved reimbursement with an insurance in Germany. They also earned a strong reputation in the radiology community. Many startups never reach even one of these milestones. Yet, from an investor's perspective, this acquisition is very modest. Contextflow was founded almost 10 years ago. It raised approximately 10 million euros. And this acquisition has an upfront payment of only 11.4 million euros. To put this in perspective, this is very modest compared with, for example, the acquisition of Glimmer by RadNet in a deal valued at more than $270 million. Meanwhile, there are other publicly listed AI companies like Lunit with market caps of hundreds of millions of dollars. So what happened? Of course, none of us knows all the details, but my interpretation is that Contextflow succeeded scientifically and operationally, yet never generated enough commercial momentum to become a market leader. And that highlights an important reality about healthcare AI startups. Publications are not product market fit. Regulatory approval does not create demand. And reimbursement does not automatically generate rapid revenue and growth. These are obviously essential milestones, but they are not enough. It is not the finish line. Actually, the hardest part often starts after obtaining them. And the hardest part is to build a scalable commercial organization, to penetrate and convince hospitals to adopt and change habits and workflows, and to grow revenue fast enough to attract continued investment. Commercial scale is a completely different skill set. Medicine and technology get you to the starting line, get you to the product. From there, it's about selling, hiring, fundraising, convincing customers, and building a business that can scale. This is why, before collaborating or investing in a startup, I always look beyond the product itself and I ask myself one simple question. Is this CEO the right person to commercially kickstart and scale this company? That's what makes the difference. And for VC-backed startups particularly, and for an investor, commercial scale is not the finish line either. The finish line is the exit. And building a company and selling a company are not the same job. Successful exits require exceptional execution, strong positioning, visibility, and above all, impeccable timing and luck. That's another lens through which I evaluate founders. Do they understand what it takes not only to build a great company, but to navigate it to a successful exit and maximize its value when the time comes to sell it? This acquisition also says something about the European ecosystem. Europe produces outstanding science, outstanding engineers, outstanding physicians, and innovation. But historically, Europe has struggled to transform this technical excellence into global category leaders. Why? In my opinion, it's because building a global healthcare company requires access to a large amount of growth capital and a large, relatively homogeneous market where products can scale quickly. Europe remains highly fragmented. Every country has its own regulatory system, reimbursement model, procurement process, language, and expanding from one country to another often feels almost like entering a completely new market in another continent. Compare that with the US, where companies can address a much larger and more unified market from day one. There's also another important difference, and it's the exit environment. An exit is when a startup is acquired by another company or listed on the stock market. It's essentially payday for the founders and the investors. In Europe, unfortunately, these events are much less common and the companies are typically sold for much lower amounts than in the US. The result is a cycle where investors in Europe earn less, reinvest less, and fewer startups receive the funding needed to become global leaders. These are some of the reasons why Europe consistently creates excellent startups, but unfortunately, comparatively few global champions. From 4D Medical's perspective, this looks like a brilliant strategic acquisition and a bargain. 4D Medical itself is valued at around 2 billion Australian dollars on the Australian public market. That's exceptionally high valuation for a relatively small medtech company operating in a niche market and generating roughly $6 million in annual product revenue. At that valuation, acquiring a high-quality European AI startup for a low eight-figure sum is almost insignificant and carries very limited financial risk. They're acquiring a proven technology, an experienced team, regulatory expertise, and European market access. It is almost certainly far cheaper and much faster than building all of that from scratch. For Contextflow's investors, on the other side, this is a better outcome than a complete loss of capital, but it falls well short of the returns many were expecting when they first invested. On the other hand, for Contextflow founders and employees, I actually think this is the most exciting part of the story. They now have greater resources, a larger commercial platform, access to public market money, and the opportunity to continue building something even bigger. In many instances in healthcare technology, an acquisition is not the end of the story. It is simply the next chapter. So what are the main lessons? First, technology alone is never enough. Second, scientific evidence is necessary, but it does not replace commercial execution and traction. And third, in healthcare AI, the companies that ultimately win are usually those that combine excellent technology and product with exceptional commercial execution. This is where the business acumen of the founders and the experience of the commercial leadership matter, and that's what creates category leaders. I would love to hear your perspective. Do you think Contextflow represents a missed commercial opportunity, or simply the fate and reality of building healthcare AI in Europe? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy discussions about healthcare AI, radiology innovation, startups, and investing, consider subscribing. I will see you in the next video.